What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along once again with James Grande, and it's time to talk some hoops. Grande, what's going on, man? You ready to preview this 10-game slate for DFS NBA?
Yeah, man. Big slates this week. 11 Monday. Yesterday was a little 4-gamer, but back to the old double digits here with 10 ready to go. Lots of injury news, lots of stars, lots of value. We got it all here.
We do, and especially you, James. I'll tell you that much. Love getting to hang out with you, and I love, even more than that, getting to read off the list of many injuries.
Yeah.
So without further adu, let me start there by telling you no Donovan Mitchell tonight, no Victor Oladipo, no Kyle Lowry, Bobby Portis, or Lou Dort, no Alexei Pokusevski either. He is out. Darius Bazley is out. Kendrick Nunn is also out. Dennis Smith Jr., Lonnie Walker, Tristan Thompson, Kardashian all out. Justice Winslow out, David Nwaba out, Wayne Ellington is out, Sekou Doumbouya is out, DeAndre Bembry out, PJ Tucker as well, Abdul Nader is out, and Frank Kaminsky as well. Then we've got some major questionables here, including Zach LaVine with an ankle injury, John Wall still with the knee is questionable, Kobe White with the neck injury, he is questionable, Kendrick Nunn is out, like I said. Then you have Derrick Rose questionable with an ankle, Ty Jerome is questionable with an ankle, Grayson Allen with that hip, he's questionable. Hassan Whiteside is questionable. Same with Doug McDermott, Jeremy Lamb, Landry Shamet. They're questionable. And then Garrett Temple is doubtful with a hamstring injury. James, per tradition, I have to ask you if I missed anybody in that long list.
I don't know if you mentioned Victor Oladipo, but he won't play tonight and will play Thursday.
Yep.
Official note. So
no Depot tonight. Well, let's start with high-priced point guards here that we're looking at. Ray Kuhn on that playbook, fantasyalarm.com, the DFS NBA playbook. So where do we begin? Because I got to ask you something, James, as the kids used to say about 7 years ago. What does the fox say? Because he's in a good matchup, man. We were freaking out a little bit with the early foul trouble last time out. This time, though, that's not stopping me, especially on DraftKings. But on FanDuel, we've reached the 10K mark, my friend. Too pricey?
John and I had this discussion on the podcast today. I don't think it's too pricey. If you want to go there, you can, especially considering De'Aaron Fox is very good defensively in terms of steals. We're averaging 1.7 over his last 6. You know, if he gets you 3 steals over on FanDuel, that's 9 points just in your back pocket. So I don't think it's too pricey. I do think the matchup is great. I do think De'Aaron Fox has still been tremendous. I mean, even with that foul trouble, didn't pick up another foul the rest of the game. Still managed to nearly get 45 fantasy points. So we know what kind of upside De'Aaron Fox brings each and every slate. So I don't think 10K is too pricey. I love 9,300. But if you're not spending up there, I think Luka makes a lot of sense. And you know that one dud he had prior to his little injury, left a sour taste in our mouth, but willing to go back to the well against a Boston team just in complete disarray right now, Fancy. Boston doesn't know how to get out of their own way right now, even after all the acquisitions and transactions they made. So Luka, Fox are clear-cut number 1 and 2 for me. I actually like just looking at Ray's playbook. I mentioned it to you earlier today. I have no interest in playing Damian Lillard right now, and if I lose out because Dame goes for 70, so be it. You can't convince me why I should be playing Dame when I can get De'Aaron Fox cheaper on DraftKings, when De'Aaron Fox has been the one giving us 60-point upside, when De'Aaron Fox has been the one scoring 30-plus every night, actual points. I mean, Dame hasn't topped 45 fantasy points in 5 straight games. So I won't be playing him. I have little to zero interest, and I get the matchup is good, and, he can always pop, but the addition of Norman Powell, how good CJ McCollum has looked since returning from injury just really takes me off Dame tonight.
I understand, man. I get that. But also because there's a value, and this is where we got to talk about this for a second, James. I know you, me, John, and Pemba have been talking about this a few times, and Pemba reminded me about this earlier. With San Antonio on a back-to-back, does that take you off of DeJounte Murray, who destroyed the Kings last game?
I don't think it takes me off them as much considering it's the front end of a back-to-back. It's unfortunate because the last 2 back-to-back samples we've had, the Spurs have lost by 30. So, they've all played less minutes on the front leg and then more on the back end of the back-to-backs. But again, they were literally 30-point losses. Does that signify, is that a trend? I mean, they've, because if it is, then that's scary to roster the Spurs. I don't think the Kings are going to blow them out. The Kings are definitely a much improved team. They've won 5 in a row or whatever it is, and they're streaking right now 7-3 over the last 10. So, but I don't suspect they'd blow the Spurs out. They just played a fairly competitive. They beat the Spurs by 17, so maybe I should pump the brakes, right? I don't know, man. I don't think I'm as scared as John is. If this was the second leg of a back-to-back fantasy, I would be completely off. I told you this. We've had live streams where it's been Popovich, and you've liked someone like DeRozan or whatever, and I've been like, nah, I'm just not going to play him on a back-to-back. It's just
right.
But because there was a day off, now it's his first leg. I'm not opposed to it. I think what I would do though, if I do want Spurs exposure, probably DeJounte is the top, the creme de la creme of the Spurs. I would just play him in tournaments because, your cash game lineups, you want more security than potentially 25 minutes of DeJounte because of the back-to-back.
Yep, and you got Fox staring at him on the other side as well.
Right, right. No, the matchup is great. The matchup, dude, if this was like a standalone where there's nothing, I'd be completely in. It's just
you and I were talking, and you're like last game, Fox 2004 minutes. Right? I'm like, bro, only this would happen. I pretty much told you I wanted to name my firstborn after Darren Fox from last year.
You were gonna get a tattoo. You said you were gonna get the tattoo right across the chest.
You talked me off of that and was smart. Oh man, at the time, bro, it was miserable. 2004 minutes. That's not on us there. The matchup is excellent. It's still excellent. And anybody that's not going after it with Fox, I don't know what to tell you at this point. Right. Any other value point guards that you like before we move on to the twos?
Yeah, I think every Detroit point guard that's active tonight, minus Frank Jackson. So Saben Lee, I think is 4,300. He's starting the last 2 games. I think Saben Lee has been tremendous. And listen, he has been a really great fantasy point per minute producer this year. And it doesn't really get better than a matchup against Portland. Hamidou Diallo, healthy, has talked now extensively about how caring the Detroit training staff is and how good he feels because of what they're helping him, recover from this injury. He played 27 minutes. Was that product of the blowout? Possibly, but they've talked about him being a key member of this rotation.
They traded for him. He has to.
Right, and I agree. And someone I also traded for was Corey Joseph, who, again, 29 and 24 minutes the last 2 games, 23 and 35 fantasy points. Is Corey Joseph going to go out there and score 17 actual points every time out? No. But it's kind of it's to an extent a lesser than Jeremy Grant, but look at what Jeremy Grant has been able to accomplish in Detroit with lack of scoring. Who's to say Corey Joseph can't take his next step in scoring because this team needs scorers? I mean, they start guys that can't score the basketball. Sadiq Bey is very inconsistent. Mason Plumlee is a pass rebound first big. So I don't hate any of these point guards. I think they're all in play. You can play 1, you can play 2 because they're all below 5K on DraftKings and they're all very good values.
So here's what I'm going after Corey Joseph, just to give you everybody, because people are going to think he needs to score the 17 points. He scores 8 or 9 like he did the previous 2 games. The peripheral stats, the steals. He can land you. He averages nearly 1 per game. He can land you that steal. He can land you a couple of boards as well, and been helping out a little bit more on the dimes front, doubling his output in his last few games. That's all you need. He's one of those guys that you're building. You have him there for 4K on DraftKings. He's one of those guys that he'll every little bits in each category, that's going to get you that value you need, James. So I'm there with you, even though he's one of the most boring, unexciting options that you could pick for a DFS lineup.
I mean, he's definitely boring, but there's nothing boring about 4K if he's going to give you, 6, 7, 8x return potentially. So, I like it. And the matchup, is the cherry on top. Portland plays no defense against point guards.
Let's talk about the next position here with shooting guards, man. This is a different situation here. You mentioned DeRozan before, whether or not you trust in playing him. I've gotten burned enough times by DeRozan, so I'm kind of more on your side than I was, let's just say, a few weeks ago. But where are you looking if you're looking to spend up big?
I mean, we're gonna spend up on Harden as the priority. He gets a matchup against Houston. He looked really good against them in his first like quote revenge narrative. Even though I don't think there's really revenge on Harden's mind, it was just time to move on in his eyes. I think Houston probably looks at it more revengey than Harden does. But he's obviously the clear-cut number one. I mean, he's been putting up 70 fantasy points with or without Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving being back in the lineup doesn't really doesn't really matter to me. The only thing I'll say is, and you could obviously, it's a fair point. If John Wall doesn't play tonight, we could be looking at a blowout. But John Pemba, not John Wall, has brought up a few good points in the past. Like Harden plays 30+ minutes in blowouts regardless. He just eats minutes, and even in a blowout, like I could see Harden still playing 32, 34, 35 minutes, and that's fine. So I do think it's worth noting that this could turn into a blowout. It's currently 12.5. That's actually better than it opened at. It was opened at 14.5. So, curious to see if John Wall, we don't know the status of John Wall, but I'm curious to see if that is why the line has moved in favor of Houston 2 points. Maybe it's Christian Wood's probable tag. I don't know. Just interesting to bring up. I do think Harden is the top play. I mentioned on the pod I don't really like the next 4 names until CJ McCollum.
Oh, I was about to be nervous here. I put McCollum in the starting 5, and I'm just like, I know it's a high price point, but like you said, he's been playing well, and he's been outperforming his value big time. So why not ride it out?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather spend $8K on McCollum than 95 on Dame. Probably at this stage of where based on recent performances, 7 out of 7 days. Like you asked me today, tomorrow, even at that's my answer would not change. It would remain CJ McCollum. So I do like McCollum. I really targeted Van Vliet the other night, Fancy, and he let us down. I'm going back to though. 7,700 again. No Kyle Lowry. Took 20 shots in that Detroit game. They just got blown out. Right? It's one of those games where you would never expect the Raptors to get blown out by Detroit. They did. They're playing an OKC team with 8 guys tonight. Right? There's 8 active players. The Raptors to get blown. Fred VanVleet has 50-point upside tonight. Between he, McCollum, and DeRozan, I think it's pretty clear-cut McCollum and VanVleet over DeRozan, personally.
And let's be real here. With Fred VanVleet, even though he's taking 20 shots as of late or close to it, he's not really hitting many of them. He's shooting pretty horribly, and he's still making it to 20 scoring points somehow. So imagine if he has a night where he's shooting, let's say, 48%. That night is coming. So I'm like that, man, because people are going to see that, and it's going to drive down ownership because he's been shooting like crap lately.
Yeah, man, and it's a great point because
I shouldn't say crap. 35% for him, I think, is still pretty bad. But it's not like he's shooting in the 20s. But yes,
I mean, I'm actually surprised to see Van Vliet is shooting below 40% this year. That actually kind of shocks me because I consider him. I hold him in much higher regard. So. If he, right? I mean, there's a reason why he got his bag, right? It's not because he's shooting 40% from the floor. So I do think that there is upside here against a bad OKC team with 9 guys tonight. OKC has 9 guys. Give me all the Van Vliet and the Raptors in general. I have a lot of interest in tonight.
What about Trent?
Yeah, I mean, he looked really good. He looked really, really good the other night, and he continues to start. And I do think that there's something to be said with Kyle Lowry out of the lineup, and there's just more ancillary stats to go around. And he gave us those stats last time out, and that's what got him over 30 fantasy points. I've always crapped on Gary Trent when John suggested him, only because he's been so scoring dependent all year. When he was in Portland, it was scoring. Well, if he's going to get us to 4 rebounds, 5 assists, then I'm completely in. Honestly, I don't think there's a bad play on Toronto in terms of their core group of guys. I'm not playing Baines. I'm not playing those crap pieces around, but I think Greg Trent's really interesting. I think Rodney Hood's really interesting at 38. We saw Rodney Hood play 28 minutes last time Lowry was out 2 games ago. So I think Toronto's a very interesting spot. I think OKC on the flip side, because Toronto can't defend anybody.
Right. I mean, looking then, this is going to be a good slate tonight. I'll tell you that much. With Toronto, I like it. By the way, when they got Trent and they replaced like Powell with him, yep. I thought, okay, it was going to be a slow adjustment. But I'll say this, man, Toronto defensively, you can drive on them, man. Yep. I continue to say that. It's awful. I'm watching them on some of these teams the other night. You even guard the lane. Minnesota, another one of those teams. We'll talk about that. Tyrese Halliburton in a great spot. Didn't want to move on to threes without talking about that. Let's move on to small forward. This was one of the positions that I had trouble with tonight. But I'll tell you where my eggs are. And this has no bias attached to it. But when looking at matchups, I like to attack Minnesota. And I think R.J. Barrett's driving ability, he's not like your typical guard forward that's going to look for that shot in the arc as much. He's a drive-first guard forward. And I like that because Minnesota doesn't defend the lane. So I think the price point's fair for him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like anybody above him, if we're being perfectly honest. Like, I don't like the position tonight. I'm right there with you. And I think it does start with R.J. Barrett. I still think $7K is a very reasonable price tag for a guy who's gotten under 30 fantasy points once in 10 games. Well, twice, but the once was 29. And you have to think about it. Last matchup, it was the Heat. In a game that had a 204 total, in a game with two of the slowest paced teams in the NBA. And that's not what Minnesota is. Minnesota plays in a top five pace amongst all teams. So there's a massive pace up spot. There's a massive, amount of possessions the Knicks are going to have compared to that Heat game. Could be without Derrick Rose. We still don't know the status there. That's more shot attempts to open up for Barrett. So I'm with you, and he's been tremendous, honestly, for quite some time, and I don't think that stops here. So yeah, this is where I would also begin, like, in terms of priorities at small forward, at least in the upper echelon of the position. I do like some guys below, but I do love me some R.J. Barrett tonight at $7K.
Am I wrong to say that Norman Powell scares me a little bit?
In what regard? Like using Norman Powell?
Yeah, man. I just feel like I'm chasing the points with him, and that's it. I mean, look, I know that he'll help out a little bit on the steals front. Couple of blocks he's registered lately, but he's not grabbing any boards. I mean, their guards are healthy. He's not going to have that much time to bring up the rock. I mean, is that someone that you're into because of the matchup, or is $7K too pricey for someone that's going to have to guarantee us pretty much 22 points scoring?
I mean, we're looking for, so maybe more, because we're looking for 35 fantasy points, right, at $7K. And when you just look at Norman Powell, he hasn't grabbed more than 3 rebounds in 5 straight games. He doesn't have more than 3 assists in 5 straight games. Only has 2 blocks in 5 games. And yes, he's contributed in the steals category 1 per game over those 5. So where is the 35 fantasy points going to come from? And that's the floor. And we're just talking floor, where I just mentioned RJ Barrett has 50-point upside, right? So like right there, like obviously we're going to go Barrett. And I don't hate it for tournaments because I think the matchup is good. But I mean, I just think there's better plays. Like on FanDuel, Kevin Porter. If we get word that John Wall's out, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. Kevin Porter's only 5,500. He's a point guard, shooting guard on DraftKings. Still at 6K, still too cheap. I think Sadiq Bey is too cheap on FanDuel. I like Kendrick Williams, as I mentioned. They're really lacking bodies, able bodies. You mentioned Pokachevsky's out tonight.
Right.
I don't know who OKC plans to start tonight. Is it Darius Miller? I could see a scenario where Kendrick Williams is the starter, just based on, well, they started Svi last game next to Poku. So
at this point, you have to think it's Maladon, Svi, Moses Brown, and then the
Roby.
other two have.
Well, Roby will be the starter, but then it's blank. So it's between Justin Jackson, Darius Miller, and yeah, that's who it's between. And Kendrick Williams Kendrick Williams, 4,400, has been, if you just look up and down the box score, he plays 20 minutes a game and gives you 20-plus fantasy points. What evidence is Kendrick Williams gets 30 tonight in a good matchup? We could be talking about a guy who has 30, 35-point upside. So that's a value I would be personally looking at.
As long as you're not convincing me to go after Justin Jackson, then we're good.
I would never
ever do that.
I wouldn't do that to you. But I would tell you to play Joe Ingles tonight. Yes. I would tell you to play Jordan Clarkson. I know we didn't talk about him earlier, but
31% Grande. That's 30 usage with Doc off the floor.
That's too hard to ignore. And even Mike Conley, man, under 6K on both sites without Donovan Mitchell. Mike Conley, we're talking about an all-star. He's been great all year. He's just kind of been limited. He's been in and out of the lineup, and I think people forget about him because of that. I don't think we should forget about him tonight. So just more names to mention that on positions we forgot. But Joe Ingles does qualify as small forward here on DraftKings.
Should we forget about Giannis tonight?
I mean, 10-5, Fancy, is really interesting. 10-5 on DraftKings. Like, I think on FanDuel at 11-3, it's easier to pass up. But 10-5, man, that's cheaper than we've seen for Giannis. You can do it in tournaments. I definitely want to entertain it. He's been bad. We finally got the scoring back up, 32 against Clippers, but he only 3 assists, 6 rebounds. Like, there's a guy averaging 11 rebounds and 6 assists per game. No steals in that game. 1 block in his last 5, 2 blocks in his last 5. Like, I don't know what's going on, but we know the blow-up's coming. So if we want to go there in tournaments, that's fine. He's not my priority tonight. James Harden, and then secondly, a guy we haven't gotten to yet is my second favorite spend up. But you can go to Giannis if we know he's as elite as it comes when he's going good.
So who's that other spend up, my man?
We haven't gotten to that position yet, so I won't spoil it.
Look at nice tease. All right, then let's stick with the power forwards for right now here, because someone that is in a great spot, Kristaps Porzingis once again. Now, James, you and I talk a lot about DVP, and if you look up the numbers, Boston, from what I saw, maybe I was just seeing things, hallucinating or whatever, they're not awful against big men, but I don't think they've got the size to keep Porzingis out and from that 5 to 6x return that I'm thinking he's getting on DK tonight.
Well, yeah, and they weren't, because Daniel Tice is a pretty good defender, no longer with the team. Tristan Thompson is an annoying defender, not like a good defender. He's just annoying. So they had good pieces in Rob Williams during his 20 minutes. But Porzingis is just in a groove, man. I mean, he had 45 fantasy points in just 27 minutes the other day. It wasn't like he was well on his way to another 50 bomb, maybe 60 if that game didn't get out of hand. So I'm with you. It's just current form and current form of the Celtics too. The DVP may say they've been good, but current form, they are not playing well at all. So I'm with you on KP. I like him quite a bit tonight. Tournaments, cash. I think you could trust him in cash games right now with the way that he's played.
Talked about Isaiah Roby before. Again, Thunder have ample opportunity, not many bodies, so he's going to be playing a pivotal role. And Pascal Siakam does not do much. I'm going to tell you guys this, and this is very frustrating. In the starting 5, I had Pokusevski in there. I thought he was in a good spot. Now he's out. Roby is in there. Liking it, you can attack Siakam, I'm telling you, and this Raptors front court. Who else do you like for value?
I do like Roby quite a bit. For value, Jaden McDaniels has been pretty tremendous for Minnesota, and he's lanky, and I kind of compared him, and I don't think this is a fair comparison to him yet. But on the podcast this morning, I compared him to Jonathan Isaac. He's a John Isaac light in terms of like length, and he possesses a lot of issues for offensive players, and he can guard 1 through 5. He guards 1 through 5. He was literally not that he stopped Harden the other day, but he guarded Harden from start to finish in that game. For 38 minutes, he guarded, arguably the best offensive player right now in the game. So just shows you the versatility. It also shows you that they trust him. 33, 36, 38 minutes, The scoring has come around, and 4 blocks. He has a block in 5 straight. I think Jaden McDaniels stands out like a sore thumb at 4,300 on DraftKings tonight. You know, it's not a great matchup, but like we're asking 4,300. We're asking for 22 fantasy points out of Jaden McDaniels, and he's done that in 3 straight games. So four straight games of 21 or more fantasy points. So I don't see a problem with rostering McDaniels as long as he's going to play 30-plus minutes again.
No, that would be great. And nice value there. Put in with Porzingis on FanDuel there. Boom, you're in a good spot. Let's move on to the final position, James, because I'm very interested in who your second favorite value is on the night. Are we ready to unveil it yet?
Yeah, second favorite spend up, Fancy, and that's Karl Anthony Towns. And I have been hypercritical of this guy this year. And maybe it was unfair. He did battle COVID, and we don't know how everyone deals with this, with the virus and how people's bodies respond when they first, return to 30 minutes of like professional sports, so he didn't look great, but man, he looks great right now. I mean, we're going through we'll just go through the box scores. And this isn't just, I'm not box score watching. Like, this is Karl Anthony Towns looks great on the basketball court right now. 62, 56, 66, 38, whatever, 56, 37, whatever, 69, 52, 60. Like, we're getting a lot of ceiling games out of Karl Anthony Towns. He's doing it on both ends. He has a block in 3 straight. He has 6 blocks in 3 games. I love where Karl Anthony Towns is right now. He's making a lot of threes, but he's not just settling. I mean, we're getting 20-plus attempts from the floor per night, inside and out, which is, very hard to stop for a player of Karl Anthony Towns' caliber. So he would actually be my second favorite spend up after Harden. And the kicker on DraftKings, he's under 10K. I know on FanDuel he's 10.8. And, I think that maybe poses a little more question whether or not, like, should I play Karl Anthony Towns at 10.8? But at 9.8, I don't think there's much question at all. The Knicks, we've killed the Knicks all year long at the center position. Every night, every time we have the Knicks, we bang that same drum. Attack the Knicks at center, attack the Knicks at... Well, we have current version of maybe the best, like, not the best center on the slate, at least. Top 3 center. Top 3 center possibly in the NBA behind Jokic and Embiid, right? So we'll go top 5 for safety. I'll be safe there. Top 5 center
Just
in the NBA.
Stop talking.
Going up against the Knicks, it's a smash spot, and I'm going to be using Towns in all my lineups tonight.
10K, baby. I like that. What about Christian Wood, who's priced down a little bit more, especially on FanDuel, sub 8K?
Okay, so here's the dilemma, right? I don't know if it's the same for Christian Wood as it would be for James Harden. What happens if this game is 20 points at halftime? If there's no John Wall and this game gets out of hand, right? Does Christian Wood, the oft-injured Christian Wood, play 35 minutes tonight?
Ooh.
I don't know the answer to that. I also don't know, like, Brooklyn hasn't been blowing teams out. I get that. They also haven't been blessed with, like, a fully healthy roster. Like, we haven't seen Harden and Kyrie together in quite some time. So, maybe that starts to come more as these guys have gotten healthier. I do worry about a blowout. I do worry about Christian Wood's health and, like, the way they view Christian Wood's health in a blowout. And so as much as I like Christian Wood, and I've loved Christian Wood for like 3 years now. I begged Detroit to play Christian Wood. They didn't at all. I begged New Orleans to play Christian Wood. They didn't play him. So I love him. It's just at the price, it's a tournament play. Like, I think it's fine. Like, pair him with Harden, right? Or pair him with Harden and Kevin Porter if John Wall is ruled out. And, like, that could be a crazy stack that wins you a tournament if they keep that game competitive. It's just the big elephant in the room is, will they keep that game competitive?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, because if Harden and Kyrie are firing on all cylinders, Houston's won like 2 of their last 30 games, right? So, like, how in good conscience can I say, like,
there's no one else?
You know what I'm saying, right? Like,
they've got no one else. They've got guys that are questionable. They've got injured players. They don't have much else, my friend.
True, but like,
and if John Wall doesn't play, then what? Who else is scoring?
I mean, it's not about who's scoring. Like, he could go crazy in 3 quarters. It just sucks. It would suck not having him in the 4th quarter. And then, like, they acquired DJ Wilson in a trade, who they've been playing. So, like, they could just play DJ Wilson all the garbage time run.
Right.
Again, I think it is a definite tournament play. I just have to – I'm not going to go this stream and suggest Christian Wood without just mentioning the fact that this game could get out of hand. Just listen, Houston is bad. They are bad. They are a bad team. Maybe it's due to, all the injuries they suffered. I'm just not ready to go all in on Christian Wood. I think it's a pretty good position anyway, Fensty. I think there's something that we have to bring up, and I want to ask you, because I don't know if you've seen it yet. Don't look. Do you know what Andre Drummond's price is on FanDuel?
Yes, I do. I looked before. That's why.
Okay, that's the question of the night, I think, because
it's $6K.
It is $5,200, right? And the question that John and I were talking about on the podcast, and I think this is yesterday they announced John Wall officially ruled out as of right now. Christian Wood will start. John Wall ruled out. Daniel House will start. So interesting there. I would like to see Rockets will start Kevin Porter.
Okay.
At point guard. That's really interesting. Like, Kevin Porter has been tremendous. But anyways, Andre Drummond, right? Andre Drummond. I shouldn't say anyways. Kevin Porter probably an elite play, Fancy, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, they don't have many other options. So.
They have DJ Autostein, because he's automatic from 3 as their backup guard now.
No John Wall.
No John Wall.
Come on, bro.
How I want an honest answer, and it's yes or no. Does Houston keep this game close? You could say maybe. I'll give you a maybe.
No, I can't say that. Okay. I can't say that. No. You know what? I'll say that it'll be within 15 points.
Okay.
Is that okay?
If it's within 15, then I'm okay with playing Christian Wood.
Okay.
Because he should probably play full complement minutes. If it gets 20 plus, I'm not playing Christian Wood. If you think it was going to be a blowout, but I do think we should talk about the Drummond price, because I think that stands out the most of anything pretty much on the slate. 5,200. He's starting. They announced it. He's starting. Right. First game, had a day of practice, whatever. Starting. Like, I don't know how. He's protocols, whatever. Right. Who cares? Throw him out the window. Starting day 1. What do we make of that? Because I don't think they're just going to start him and be like, okay, Andre, go get your feet wet. It's not like he's hurt, right? He hasn't been sitting out for an injury. He's been sitting out because his team was either trying to find a trade partner or just buy him out.
And his matchup is Brook Lopez.
And his matchup is Brook Lopez in a pace-up spot at 5,200 for a guy that.
Dude, I'm not ignoring it. Because let me tell you why. If you're asking me, if we're going around in circles, you're asking me whether or not this guy can get a deep double-double in sub 30 minutes, 28 minutes, I'm going to say yes to you.
And does he, I could see a scenario where he plays 30. Is that crazy? Because he's I don't know, man. I just don't think they would.
He doesn't have to do much. They haven't had a center pretty much in there. They just need him to clog the lane tonight.
Right. I mean,
here's the thing with Andre Drummond. The big thing that we all have to remember back in Detroit, where they had no consistent system, he's not going to be getting the ball at the top of the arc and holding on to it for 10 seconds.
Pick and roll, baby.
At the top of the arc, he's passing it off within 3 seconds. He's getting the screen, or someone's coming behind him and flipping it back, and he's running right to that lane.
Pick and roll with Dennis Schroeder. That's what I said to John. They could literally just run the same play over and over, and and use him as as a pick and roll guy all night for 30 minutes. And he could listen, we've seen Andre Drummond 2020. I'm not going to predict a 2020, obviously, in his first game, but it would not shock me with the way that minutes way coaches have used players this year, and all these limits are not actually limitations at all. It wouldn't shock me to see 30 minutes and like 20 and 15 in a really good matchup. It wouldn't. And he's 5,200 for a guy that we're generally accustomed to seeing 8, 9K.
Right. So what? They want to give us the bait. I'll take the line.
I will take the line.
Puts up stats. He's a volume guy. It doesn't. You know what? I could say as much criticism about him when he's on the court defender. This is not what this is about. This is about stats.
Yep. Agreed.
That's what this is. So
agreed.
He's James Grande. I'm Justin Fensterman. A big debate there at the end between the Houston News and whether or not to go after Drummond, but yet all hands on deck when it comes to Drummond on FanDuel. Let's dominate. Get in the chat. James, I thank you very much. I'll give you the salute this time like you gave to me the other day. Let's all dominate because there isn't any other option. We're going to win.